Welcome everyone to College Planning and Panel Presentation Night for the class of 2027. Super excited to get this process started for this group of kids. I'm a little biased because I'm the class advisor for this class, so I've gotten to have extra meetings with them throughout the past few years, and this year we're planning prom. But I do think this is an awesome group of kids, just a great bunch of personalities. And this week we went in for the junior seminars to kind of go over this process with the kids. And it was just such a fun couple of days. It's so nice to be presenting to a group of kids who aren't afraid to jump in and ask questions and participate. They're really good with that stuff. So I think the class of 2027 is a particularly good group of kids, one of my favorite classes so far. So we're just excited to get this process started with them. My name is Riley Dunn. I'm one of the counselors here, and Nicole Knabel's also on the call. Nicole is actually kicking off her maternity leave. She's having a baby in the next week or two. So she'll be out for a little while, but we do have someone coming to cover her maternity leave whose name is Jessica Woodacre. Jessica's awesome. She starts on Monday. So she'll be here to help for the next few months. And then Nicole will come back to us in May, and we'll be here to support the kids for the end of the year and moving forward into next year. We do break it down by alphabet at the high school. So the kids whose last names are in the first half of the alphabet are on my caseload, and then Nicole and Jessica have the second half of the alphabet. So that's kind of how we break it up. But the kids know we do a ton together, so they see a lot of both of us, and we really get to know everybody. All right, so some numbers just to, I think, put us all at ease as we start this process. For the class of 2025, we had 88% of them, that was last year's graduating class, that were interested in pursuing post-secondary education. That's pretty typical for Millis High School. And there are about 6,000 colleges and universities in the United States. And for the class of 2025, the number of kids that really wanted to go to college, but they couldn't because they didn't get in, was 0. And I will say that that is true for all of the 12 years that I have been working at Millis High School. We have never had a kid who wanted to go to college but didn't get in. We are going to work with them to come up with lists of schools that are balanced and realistic. Again, we're out of those 6,000. We can find 6 to 10 schools that would be an awesome fit for each of them and that they would be really excited to go to. And we want to make sure we'll help them to figure out whether their list is balanced and realistic in terms of their chances of getting in and their chances of being able to pay for it as a family. So tonight we'll go over some of the tools that are available to help them with that process. But I like to share those numbers just to remind the kids they've got this and we're here to help them. And what's going to happen is this time next year, they're going to be, receiving acceptances and just trying to figure out which of all the colleges that they got into, where do they want to actually go. So we'll get them there. Tonight, for these first kind of 15 minutes, I'm going to go over briefly just the quick junior timeline and some of the resources that are available that are really helpful throughout this process for the kids. And then we'll really dive into the details of the college application process with our panel. We have representatives from Boston College, UMass Amherst, Mass Bay Community College, Suffolk University, and North Carolina State University here tonight. And they're going to answer a lot of questions for us about the college application process. So that's where the bulk of the info is going to come tonight. So bear with me while I kind of breeze over some of the timeline stuff and some of the basics, and know that as we get into the panel, that's when we're going to dive more into some of the details. All right, so from now until the end of their junior year, I told the kids the biggest thing that they can do, the best thing they can do for their college applications, even if they do nothing else from now until September, the best thing that they can do is keep their grades up. Okay, strong grades are going to be the first thing that colleges are looking for when they're reviewing applications. So keep those grades up through the end of this year, and then again for their senior year. We did counseling seminars this week, and we have some again next week, so that we're going over all of the information tonight that we go over. We're going over that information with the kids. So they have that as well. The other big task is to research, and really have fun with it, right? Like they're launching their adult lives. They're thinking about where they want to live and where do they want to be and what do they want to major in, really trying to picture themselves and at each school that they're looking at for those 4 years, and thinking about all the opportunities that are available to them and how fun it will be and how great it will be, and trying to figure out what do they like and what do they don't like, so that they can build a list of schools that they're interested in. And then as they learn more, narrow down that list so that they can come up with a list of 6 to 10 schools that they want to apply to in the fall. The other big task really is to prep and sign up for the SAT or the ACT. We recommend taking it in either March, May, or June. Some kids are already signed up for March. May and June are awesome times to take that test. So the information for how to sign up for that is given to them in the Google Classroom that we have created for them to help them with this process. We have FlexBlock meetings every cycle at the high school. So Nicole and I just hang out in the conference room. We give away coffee and hot cocoa if they want it. And we want them to just come and hang out and spend those 25 minutes, whether it's, signing up for the SATs and checking that off their list, or just spending 20 minutes researching colleges on the websites that we've given them, or in the fall, maybe it's spending 20 minutes working on their applications. And we're just there to help them and support them and answer questions if they have it. So we encourage the kids to sign up for our Flex Blocks and come hang with us for that time. It kind of helps them too to just stay on top of things and make sure that they're not missing anything. We encourage the kids to take college visits if they can. They have 3 excused absences that they can use for college visits. So they're welcome to take advantage of those. They also could go, of course, over February break or April break or over the summer. So we encourage them to get out there and get on campus if they can. And really, that's a really good way to get a sense of whether or not they can picture themselves there and enjoy the culture and the community of campus. So yeah, hopefully by June or over the summer, they can start to sort of have a list of schools that they're interested in. And over the summer, the name of the game is just more researching, right? Just more figuring out, what do I like? What do I not like? What's out there? Building that list. And also over the summer, they could begin their common applications if they want to. It'll be open, so they can begin that college application. It's not anything really super challenging. It's a little tedious. It's just entering a bunch of information about themselves. So it's a nice thing to check off the list over the summer if they have time, but they won't be actually submitting any applications until the fall. So the fall, we'll meet with them again in seminars to remind them of everything about this process. Again, hopefully by then they've done a lot of research, so they're feeling good about having a list of 6 to 10 schools that they're excited to apply to. We'd recommend taking the SATs or the ACTs again. So we recommend taking it 2 times, once in the spring and once in the fall. And then in the fall is when they will start submitting those applications. If they're applying early action, early decisions to schools, those deadlines will come up in October and November. If they have regular decision schools, those deadlines will come up in January for the most part, but there are some in December or February as well. And we'll have another another parent night in the fall. And the best part about that one is the financial aid piece. So we'll have a specialist from the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority come to present about the financial aid process for you all. So please, even if you come tonight, if you're here tonight, we would encourage you to come again in the fall, because we're not going to dive much into the financial aid piece tonight. So please do come to that when the opportunity comes. All right. So the average number of applications for a Millis High School student is about 7 applications. We recommend 6 to 10. Beyond 10, things get kind of unwieldy in terms of all of the things that they have to keep track of and do. And also it's expensive, right? There's a fee for all of the applications. But things like, monitoring deadlines, figuring out whether or not they require the SATs and whether or not your student wants to send them, whether or not they require the FAFSA or the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA for financial aid. So there's just a bunch of pieces, and you'll hear tonight as we go through things, there's so many things that the answer to the question is it depends. It depends on the student, it depends on the school. So beyond 10 schools really just gets to be pretty burdensome for the kids. So we want them to spend the time on the front end narrowing down the list so that they're not wasting their time, their money, or their energy applying to too many schools and having to track all of it. And each of those schools should be classified, as a reach or realistic or likely. We recommend having at least 2 likely or safety schools, at least 2 realistic or target schools, and then they can have as many reach schools as they want. And we tell the kids that if we say to them, oh, that's a reach school, or if SCORE, our website, labels it as a reach or a far reach, we're not saying you've got no shot, keep dreaming. All we're saying is we also want you to have some likelies and some safeties. But we have kids get into their reach schools all the time. So we totally encourage applying to reaches. We just want to make sure the list is balanced out with realistics and safeties or likelies as well. And every school on the list, again, it costs money, it's time and it's effort, but every school on the list should be a first choice school, in that it should be a school that they'd be really happy going to. There's just no reason to waste any time or energy on schools that they wouldn't want to go to. All right. So some of the resources that are available to them throughout this process. We are here and we are so happy to set up individual meetings and appointments with families as well. So we want the kids to book with us. We want them to pop in and ask us questions anytime. Like, this is our favorite part of this process. So we really want to see them and we want them to come to us. And let's see, Google Classroom we've set up with them that has a ton of resources available, everything that we go over tonight. SCORE, I'm going to demonstrate all the useful tools in there in just a minute. It's helpful not only for some of the necessary things that we have to send off for them through SCORE in the fall, but also for researching colleges. It's really awesome. And then college rep visits are going to happen in the fall. So we have admissions reps from colleges that come right to our conference room at Millis High School during lunch. And they're there just to meet with our kids and talk to them about the school and answer their questions. So we encourage the kids to take advantage of those opportunities. Often it's Jeff and it's Lisa and it's Philip, the ones that are on this call tonight. It's them, and they're often the ones reading the applications for students from Millis High School that apply to that college. So it's really a nice opportunity for our kids not only to learn about a school, but help the admissions counselors put a face to a name. They remember, when students come and sit with them and have lunch, kids also sign in, so they have a record of the fact that they were there with them, which can, help with the fact that they showed interest. But they usually remember too that they were great kids, they were nice, and they appreciate that they took the time to come and sit with them to learn about the school. So we'll post about those on Instagram in the fall. They'll also be listed in SCORE. So we encourage the kids to take advantage of those when the time comes. All right, so I do want to do a quick demonstration of SCORE. Let's see. So as I mentioned, SCORE there's some things in here that have to be done in order for us to be able to send things off to them in the fall. But for now, we really want the kids to use it for narrowing down their list of schools and learning about different schools. So if I were to go to Discover, can everybody see my, okay, I'm sharing my SCORE screen, perfect. Nicole, sorry, can you give me a thumbs up that I'm sharing my SCORE screen or no? Not okay. Let's see.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm logged into SCORE. I'm Jeremiah Jr. is what my name is in here. So, all right, so I hit Discover, and then I'm going to go to colleges. And from here, I can plug in my preferences for a school. So let's say I know I want to major in criminal justice, and I definitely want a 4-year degree. And let's see, I don't know exactly where I want to be. I could, if I did know exactly what states I was considering, I could click off specific states. But I think I'm just going to say, I know I don't want to go too far. I'd like to stay in the Northeast. So I click on that. And let's say I know that I'd like to be at a smaller school. Let's see, and call it, I'm open to city and suburban and town, but it would prefer not to be too rural. It'll pull up a list of colleges that meet that criteria. And from here, you can really dive in and click on the school. Sometimes it has a nice virtual tour you can take, but there's just a ton of great information in here that students can, get the quick and dirty facts about each school. They can see the tuition rate, they can see the size of the school, they can check out all the different majors under academics and learn about each major. They can check out admissions and kind of the average accepted scores and everything. Let's see, my favorite piece of, oops, it's hard to find it on my screen here. So one of my favorite tools on here is the scattergram. So this is for Assumption University in Worcester. And everybody on the scattergram is a student from Millis High School that has applied to Assumption University since 2018. Okay. So if they're plotted based on their GPA and their SAT score. And every green dot is a accepted student. Every yellow dot is a on the graph here, the purple star. So I can see where I fall on this graph compared to other Millis students who have applied to this school, which really helps me to get a sense of my chances of getting in. So you can see for Assumption, I can feel pretty good about it being a likely school for me and that my chances of getting in are good. All right. And let's see if I close this scattergram. I've bookmarked a few colleges here so you can see another example. So UMass Amherst, I can check out. Again, I can take the tour of the dorm rooms. UMass has a ton on here, so you can really check things out. And then to show you just like what UMass Amherst's scattergram looks like, just for another example, we have lots of kids that apply to UMass Amherst. Again, these are all Millis students, so it's really helpful in really determining whether it's a reach, a realistic, or a safety. So here I am, the purple star, and you can see there's some red triangles around me. There are also some green circles. So for this school, it's realistic for me, but it's certainly not a definite. Okay, so I would call it a realistic. And I would know that I need to also have some other schools that feel a little bit safer and more likely for me, but I'm still going to apply to UMass, right? Because I may get in. So it's just a super, super useful tool to use as they go throughout the process. And again, they can add colleges to their list. They can knock colleges off. There's a ton of info in there. And it'll actually label for them based on their own information, whether it's a realistic, a target school is the word they use instead of realistic, or a reach or a far reach. So that's helpful as well. Okay. All right. So I am going to begin the panel presentation at this point. So I'll stop sharing my screen in a moment, but I would like to introduce, we've got Allie Buzzio from Suffolk University, Philip Baird from UMass Amherst, Jeff Gallant is from Boston College, Lisa Slavin is from Mass Bay Community College, and Eric Tradeup is from North Carolina State University. So I'm going to throw some questions out to all of them, and I'll direct the questions at a specific person, but if anybody at any point feels like they have something to add to the answer that someone else provided for one of the questions, feel free to chime in after. And to start, if you wouldn't mind, could you each give a brief introduction to you and your institution, and maybe talk about what the profile of a typical applicant to your institution is? So who wants to kick it off? Maybe Philip, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can start it. So thanks, Riley. Hello, everyone. My name is Phil Baird. I am one of the assistant directors of admissions at UMass Amherst. Also, just to kind of preface it, I say UMass a lot. That's specifically UMass Amherst. I can't speak upon UMass Boston, Lowell, or Dartmouth, but I do kind of tend to just say UMass. So I'm speaking specifically about Amherst when I say that. So UMass is a big school, 23,000 undergraduate students, largest school in the Northeast. We're out in Western Massachusetts, town of Amherst. It's a great college town. Everything's focused towards college students out there. It's a small town. It's only about 10,000 people, but there's 5 colleges in the area. So it's kind of a perk of going to UMass is you can take classes for no extra cost at Smith College, Mount Holyoke, Hampshire, and Amherst colleges as well. We're tied in with those schools. So it's a cool program. We have around 95 different majors. There's also a program where you can create your own major. I'm sure we'll get into majors and things like that later on. Happy to talk about that, obviously. But big school, fun place. I was a student there. I went there for 4.5 years. I graduated in 2023. Worked as a tour guide my entire time. So I've been in admissions, some type of admissions capacity since I was 18, and then been working for them since I graduated in 2023. And I am the rep for Millis. So I was here last fall. I was here the fall before that. I was on this panel last year. I'll be at the fair on March 5th. So come say hello, ask about UMass. I'm happy to talk about it. So thanks.
All right. Thank you, Philip. Do you want to go next, Lisa?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Lisa Slavin from Mass Bay Community College. Mass Bay Community College is one of the 15 community colleges here in the state of Massachusetts. We're a public school, just like UMass. And so we're part of the bigger 29 public colleges and universities here in Massachusetts. Mass Bay Community College is your local community college. So we technically serve 27 cities and towns. We work very well with Millis High School. You have an amazing group right here. Riley and Nicole are awesome. They really know how to help their students. So that relationship's important to us. So we have about 5,000 students across 3 different campuses. Our main campus is in Wellesley, Massachusetts. We have a beautiful new health science building in Framingham, Massachusetts, and an automotive technology program in Ashland. We pride ourselves on meeting our students where they are. I usually say we're the most affordable option, which we are, but now I don't know if you've heard, community college in Massachusetts is free. We're going into our 3rd year of free community college. So it's a great opportunity to take advantage of what our tagline actually says, which is start here, go anywhere. We have so many students who come to our institution with hopes of transferring to a 4-year institution. And you can do that very easily. And now you can do it for free and then save your money for when you go to your bachelor's or work on your master's. So excited to be here and answer all your questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Jeff, do you want to go next for BC?
Yeah, sure, Riley. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Gallant. I'm really glad to be here. I've been at BC since 2004. It seems like I've been doing this panel since then. But it's always great. Millis High School has been very good at Boston College for the years, so we appreciate the relationship. It's always good to support Riley and Nicole. Nicole, congratulations. But to talk about Boston College a little bit, I think you have so many great options here in the greater Boston area. I think what's unique about BC is, one, our location, because we're so close to the major metropolitan area. The T's right across the street. When you're on campus, you see the Boston skyline. At the same time, in Newton, we're embedded in a neighborhood, and so neighborhood homes on 3 sides, Reservoir on a 4th side. So it's a traditional residential campus experience. And while students might live off campus junior year, they live back on campus senior year, which is really, really neat. And then while you're at a great high school, an exciting thing about college is, getting to work with material that you didn't have much exposure to at Millis. And so we're large enough to promote that kind of academic variety. We have 4 undergraduate colleges. The Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences houses all our humanities and science majors. Over 30 majors in that school alone. The Carroll School of Management, where students study business, the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, and the Cannell School of Nursing. Also, we have a religious affiliation. We're Catholic, more specifically founded by the Jesuits. The Jesuits have founded 27 colleges and universities here in the United States, and thousands of colleges all over, or thousands of schools, high schools and colleges all over the world. It's a philosophy of education that's worked for many different types of people. One interesting aspect of social life on campus is that we don't have Greek life, we don't have fraternities and sororities. So when you sort of ask the question about what we're looking for in an applicant, obviously somebody who feels like their academic transcript's a good reflection of their ability. They counseled well with you all, and they took a schedule that was appropriate for them across 4 years. They didn't exceed their ability, but also they were able to be involved, because while some schools do fraternity and sorority life really well, that's not how you'll make friends at a school like BC. You'll have to join different clubs and organizations. That's kind of how you'll meet your people and enjoy life outside the classroom. But thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Jeff. All right, Allie, another Boston school. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name's Allie Buzzio. I'm actually one of our assistant directors for undergraduate admissions. I know Gina Versa usually will step in for me when I have conflicts and things like that. So I think the titles got mixed up. I just don't want to make myself seem more established in the field than I am. I've only been in this role for almost 4 years now. So I'm not at director level yet, but I appreciate it. I'm one of our assistant directors, like I said. I'm also our athletics liaison, so I work really closely with student athletes and the coaches here at Suffolk. We are a 4-year private institution in the middle of downtown Boston, right in the heart of the city. If you're all familiar with around the Park Street Government Center area, we're right around the corner from the Massachusetts State House as well. We have about 70 different undergraduate programs across 2 different schools, the College of Arts and Sciences, and then our Sawyer Business School as well. Lots of students and families typically know us for our law school too, so that is also an option. We do have an undergraduate law program that lives within our College of Arts and Science, but then we also have a separate law school for students that are looking to later pursue their Juris Doctor with us. We'll probably go into specific details about GPA and different things like that, but usually the average accepted student sits around a 3.5 out of a weighted 4.0 scale for us. We like to see a healthy mix of involvement. That's really whatever it kind of looks like to you. We really value just different forms of getting involved at Suffolk, whether you're, captain of a sports team, you work part-time, you're a caretaker for a family member, whether it's a younger sibling, parent, grandparent, whatever the case might be, you do community service. We really value all of that. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. And then we'll take it down to North Carolina with Eric.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me here tonight. This is my first time on the panel. It sounds like some of y'all have been doing this for a little bit, but thanks Riley and Nicole for having us. Congratulations, Nicole. Also, I appreciated the kind of the run through the score. I have not ever seen it from that side, so it was really cool to see it. So I think the students have such great resources from that perspective. So just a little bit about NC State. I think really to introduce myself, I am the regional assistant director for NC State. I actually live and work in Vermont, so I'm somewhat regionally located. I spend a lot of my time traveling through New England, and then New York and New Jersey is also part of my area. That said, we are the largest school in North Carolina. We have about 38,000 students, about 28,000 undergrads. So it's definitely going to be a big school experience. The campus is located about a mile from downtown Raleigh. While we are not in the city, we're near the city. And Jeff, interestingly enough, when I'm talking to local students, I'll often say, our campus is more like BC than BU. So, and then the local kids always know what I'm talking about when I say that. I'm actually graduated from BC as a grad program, so I'm familiar with the campus. But yeah, so that's cool. Anyways, we have about 100 different majors. We have been recognized as a STEM institution, though only about half of our students are in STEM majors. So I don't think there's an expectation that they are in those fields. I think we're probably best known for engineering, but then, like I said, we really extend beyond that. For us, there is a pretty big point of emphasis on hands-on experiences. All around campus, you're going to see the phrase "think and do," and that references our commitment to internships and co-ops, research, study abroad, things like that. In addition to being located near Raleigh, we're also right on the edge of a space called Research Triangle Park, which is home to some pretty well-known companies, Google, Apple, Red Hat, places like that. We have over 700 clubs and organizations. We certainly emphasize students getting involved. That is a big part of our campus. We use the phrase "find your pack" around campus, really as kind of a point of reference to get them to make those connections. I think with other students, and that really, of course, as we all know, kind of shapes that overall college experience. I think to describe our academics, we're moderately competitive. Our acceptance rate is in the mid 30s, 30, 35, 39%, somewhere in there. Academically, what we're looking for is mostly A's and B's, probably more A's than B's. We do direct admit to major, which is, I think, sort of a unique distinction for us. So we will look, some majors are going to be, of course, more competitive than others. And so sometimes it's mostly all A's and maybe a couple of B's. We are, of course, looking for well-rounded students as well. So we're going to look at what you're involved in, extracurriculars, leadership, those kinds of things are all part of our review process. So that said, thanks again for having us here, and I'll turn it back over to our leaders here.
Great, thank you. Okay, so like I said, I'll direct the question at one of you, and then anybody else is welcome to join on to add to the answer. This first one will be for you, Allie. So with regard to the college process, where should the junior students' focus be right now? What types of things should they look for as they begin their search for colleges?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like junior year is a really great time to start the visiting to different colleges and universities. I feel like right now you probably just kind of like looking ahead to the next few months, you maybe have spring break coming up, and then obviously you have your entire summer break as well. So, if you're looking to go outside of New England, maybe reserve that for the summer so you don't have to worry about, taking time away from school. Anytime really to visit a campus, I feel like is valuable. But usually I'm a little bit biased to going when the school year is in session. But I think any time that you can get on campus and get a feel for what it actually physically feels like to be on that campus, walking around, going from building to building is going to be valuable no matter what. A lot of schools, I'll speak for, all of the schools on here, is they'll likely also have virtual opportunities too. So, we're all well aware that our students come from all over the country, all over the world. So we really try to meet students where they're at. And if they're not able to make it to campus, we still want to make sure that they're able to see our campus in some way, whether that's virtually or in person. So definitely, I would say cast a wide net now. And then as you move closer to senior year, that's when you really start to get specific and can kind of whittle it down a little bit. But for those on the call that are really just kind of very new to the process and might not even know where to start, I think it's better to just start looking at everything. I'll usually make the analogy that visiting schools is kind of like trying on clothes. You don't have to end up applying there or even go there, but it's good to kind of see what feels right. Even if it's a school you maybe never even considered. I'll use myself as an example. When I was looking at schools, my mom really pushed me to apply to UConn, even though that was like the school that a lot of our other people in my high school would go to. They're a lovely school. It just wasn't the experience that I wanted for myself. But I wouldn't have had any idea on, what kind of institution UConn was if I didn't go and visit. So I think that visit piece right now is maybe the most important. Also considering too, just like what you want to learn about or things that you enjoy learning about currently in high school, and how that can kind of develop in college as well.
Awesome, thank you. All right, this next one I'll direct towards Philip. So what advice do you have for kids on selecting a major? What's the impact on a student if he or she wants to apply undecided? And what are some of the most competitive majors out there for admissions right now at your institution?
Yeah, so to select a major, I think that you should do what you are passionate about, right? Whatever, subject you really love in high school right now, focus towards that. Also understand that you might change your major, and that's normal to do. At UMass, it's about 70% of our students change their major at least once. Obviously, you don't want to be changing your major like every 3 months. That's not like the goal of college. You do want to like find out what you want to do eventually. But it's okay to change your major, right? I entered in as a math education major. My goal was to be a high school math teacher. I did really poorly in all my math classes once I got to UMass. So I decided to drop that and I switched over to geography, and that's the degree that I have. And I chose geography because sixth grade geography in middle school was my favorite class I've ever taken. And then I loved the geography gen ed courses that I took when I was at UMass. So that's where my passion was, and I decided to focus on that. I think go in with an open mind that just because you're a certain major in college doesn't mean that has to be the exact job that you do post college. Obviously, there's a lot of things out there, right? If you want to be an engineer, you kind of got to be an engineering major, right? You want to be a nurse, you got to be a nursing major, right? For us, a lot of students want to go into business. Our Eisenberg School of Management, great business school, really popular. Like you can be a communications major, economics major, even an English major, something that's not solid business, accounting, finance, and still go and pursue a business career, right? So yes, the major matters, and applying to us, the major is the most important part. Kind of similar, I think, to what Eric was talking about. We read major by major. So every major on our campus is a different, not application process, but different admission process. We look for certain GPAs for some majors and higher GPAs for others. Some majors are far more competitive than others. The tough ones to get into, anything business, computer science, engineering, psychology, nursing, and architecture. At least this year, though, in the past couple of years, those have been the most popular because they're tough to get into. They're great programs. They're really popular majors. So that's why they are the more selective programs that we have. Versus other majors like geography will accept you, because no one wants to do geography except for myself for whatever reason. Don't know why I pursued that, but it was a great major, right? But it's not as popular as a business major is right now, right? So that's why certain majors are a bit more selective and competitive than others. If a student wants to be undecided, totally cool with us. Again, it's normal to not know exactly what you want to do. A lot of you guys are probably 16 or 17 years old. It's okay to not know what you want to do. If anyone tells you otherwise, don't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about. You can change your mind. It's okay to choose a different career path. You can't come to UMass specifically as just completely undecided. We have 10 different schools and colleges on our campus, so you would choose your undecided within one of the schools or colleges, right? I really like natural sciences. I love math. I love chemistry. I love biology classes in high school, but you just don't know which one you want to pursue. You would choose the undecided track within the natural sciences college. Same thing with humanities and fine arts, public health, education, social behavioral sciences. And then we do have an option to go build your own major, and you really just get to create whatever you want to pursue. So yeah, obviously major is important, but it's okay to switch. It's okay to not know. Don't feel too much pressure. I went through like 10 different career paths that I was thinking of in my 5 years of college. I couldn't make up my mind, and I ended up in admissions and absolutely love it. So, right, you'll figure it out. Don't put too much pressure on it, but also like get an idea of what you want to do.
Awesome. Do any of your schools handle the undecided versus actually applying with a major in mind differently than UMass? Like, is it okay to apply to your school undecided, or do students need to choose a major when they first apply at, say, BC, Jeff?
Yeah, sure. So it's a little different. We asked, did you choose one of the 4 divisions? But you can be undecided. Whether you go undecided, choose a major will have no bearing on your admissions chances. However, you're undecided with a major applying to Morrissey, Carroll, Lynch, or Connell. So you do have to make that choice. But a good question you could ask every visit is, how long? Like, what's that process like? When do I need to declare a major? For us, it's the end of sophomore year.
And Riley, can I just add, because you asked what's, what are the most popular majors? I think a lot of us a popular question we always get is, do you have nursing? Nursing's a very popular major. And I think something to ask at some of the schools is, are you allowed to do internal transfers? So what I mean by that is, for example, a lot of us who do have nursing programs, we're limited in the number of students we can take, usually tied to accreditation and clinical spaces. And so sometimes there might be a program, I'm going to pick on UMass Amherst for a second. Oh, I just went dark. That's a school, for example, I know, you have direct admission, but once you're in the school, you can't change your major for some of those programs. Same thing at Mass Bay as well. When you come in for one of our selective admissions programs like nursing or radiological technology, there's only so many spaces. So if you want to do one of those high demand programs, it is best to know that you should check with the school and make sure that, the most direct path is to apply as a freshman going in. And if not, do they take transfer students? And if so, is it external transfers or internal transfers? So I know that seems like a lot, but I think those majors specifically are worth asking those questions to the schools.
Awesome. Thank
I'm
you.
going to jump in real quick just because you brought that up. Thank you, Lisa. Nursing for us, you can't switch into, and then business, no one can switch into our business school either. So just want to cover myself, make sure I got that out there for everyone.
Right. So you either
for a couple of years at this point.
Right. So you either are accepted when you apply the first time into those programs, or you're not. You cannot transfer in later. Right.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. All right. This next question is going to be for Eric. How do you suggest that students make the most of a college visit or maybe a conversation with a rep at a college fair?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think really thinking about probably starting with the college fair, I always would recommend students have kind of a list of questions that they want to ask the rep. That it's usually a fairly limited amount of time, especially if there's a line building. I know when I'm on the other side of the table, if I start to see a line, I feel a little bit anxious and I feel like I need to move the student through the questions a little bit faster. But if you have a few questions in mind, it always helps. For me, probably the most important is going to be some of those things that we looked at with the score, where it's like, does the school have the major you're looking for? Where are you located? How big is it? Those kinds of things are going to be important if you haven't done, some of that research on score on the back end. It's important to get a sense of what the schools are looking for from you as an applicant. So, then we start to talk about some of the academic and non-academic factors. Again, some of the things that we talked about. One of the things that I like to tell students when they're planning a visit to get the most out of it is, it's great to go. It's good to go on the tour. Ultimately, the goal is to get a sense and a feel for fit. And, I'll tell students, ask yourself, hey, can I see myself here? And if you can, that's going to be a big contributor to your success as a student. And that's what everybody wants. You want to be successful. The school wants you to be successful. Schools measure something called retention rate. And that's really what they're trying, that's measuring your happiness. But one of the bits of advice I like to give students is talk to other students. Ask them what they like. Other students that attend there, ask them what they don't like. You can look at websites and you can look at brochures. And, the funny thing about websites and brochures is it's always sunny and everybody's always happy. It never rains, on any of these campuses or anything, and nobody's ever unhappy if you just look at the pictures and the websites. But talk to the students that are there. They're going to tell you what they like, what they don't like. Parking sucks or whatever they're going to say. That's always the thing I think people complain the most about. But you're going to get it from them, and obviously you hope that you're going to hear good things, but that's going to tell you a lot. So you talk to me at a college fair, I'm going to tell you things are great all the time. It's always sunny. Everybody's happy. It never rains. But talk to the current students, and they're going to give you some thoughts there.
Yeah, and just to note, Eric, you might not know, but everybody else has been on this call before, but Millis is a super small town and a really tight-knit community. And Nicole and I are still in touch with many of the students that have gone off to these different colleges. So we tell our juniors and our seniors, if they're interested in school and they want to talk to somebody, we can connect them with a Millis kid who's there, who was just there a few years ago. And exactly, that's the real perspective that they want to get, for sure.
That's awesome that you guys can do that. Yeah.
Just jumping in real quick, I did see we have some raised hands. We will do a Q&A at the very end. So definitely save your questions for the end and we'll make sure to get to all of those.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so the next question I'm going to direct towards Allie. What do you see as the most important factors in determining whether or not to admit an applicant? how do you view demonstrated interest as a piece of that? But in general, what are all the things that you're looking at when you're deciding whether or not you might admit a student?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it specific to Suffolk for now, just because I know we have a range in institutions and schools, maybe like BC and UMass Amherst, depending on the program, might be a little bit more selective than us. Not to say that we don't have fantastic programs, but I do know that our acceptance rates do look different. So for us specifically, and this, of course, might apply more generally to most schools as well, but you'll hear a word get thrown out a lot just about kind of our holistic approach. A lot of schools, I feel like nowadays, are taking that approach. So that means that they're really looking at everything in your application. Of course, for, obviously most schools, they want to see a solid academic performance depending on the institution. That could be just A's and B's. Some schools are fine with A, B's, and C's. For Suffolk, like I was saying, we usually have around that 3.5 out of a 4.0 weighted scale for our accepted students. Our acceptance rate right now is around, I believe, 83%. So we are fairly admissible. We work really closely with institutions like Mass Bay and all the other community colleges in Massachusetts and outside the state. So at least for us, when I'm looking at applications, I was doing that earlier today during the workday. Demonstrated interest plays a pretty significant role in that for usually students that are maybe on the cusp of admissibility. That can, look like any type of visit that you've done, whether you're coming up to us at a college fair, you're showing up to our visits when we come to Millis High School, you come for a campus tour, you come to an open house. We also keep track of all the email communication that you send us and we send you, so we can see how many times you've logged onto our website and looked at the curriculum for the psychology project or the psychology program at Suffolk specifically. Involvement as well is always really significant, like I was talking about before. And then of course your essay too. I'm sure there's probably a whole question that's going to be dedicated towards the college essay itself, so I'll keep it brief there. But this is your opportunity as a student to kind of tell us your story. When you hear about what we do on the everyday during our fall travel season, when we're at peak busy time, we sometimes don't have the pleasure and the opportunity to meet every single student that's interested in Suffolk University, BC, UMass Amherst, etc. So while I would love to talk to every student that is interested in Suffolk, that's not always the case. So sometimes your essay or your activity section or an email that you send us is going to be my introduction to you, my first impression of you, and will give you a little bit, or will give me a little bit more context for the type of person and student you are outside of your transcript. I think it's really easy to draw assumptions based on, 6 or 7 classes you took every single year in high school. Maybe your grade in Algebra 2 is a D-, but really that just tells me you're maybe not a strong math student, but there could have been other factors that contributed to that. So a lot of it is nuance for me when I'm looking at the applications. But yeah, I'm going to put a period at the end of that sentence just in case I ramble too much and anyone wants to add anything else. I hope that was helpful.
I'll jump in. So we do a very similar thing, holistic review, everything matters, right? The thing that we weigh the most is going to be your GPA and your transcript. That's by far and away the most important thing to us. First and foremost in high school, you guys are students. When you come to our campus, you're going to be students first. We got to make sure that you can do the work in high school to then prove to us that you're going to be successful on our campus. And, it goes both ways as well. We want to make sure that we're only bringing the successful students who are going to be, we're bringing the students who will be successful onto our campus, because we don't want to set anyone up to fail. Like if we're seeing that you can't do it in high school, you're just not going to do well on our campus. And that's not going to be a win for us. It's not going to be a win for you, right? So that GPA is the most important part. And then again, like I was saying, every major is a little different. And then just to echo everything Ali said, I thought that was very well put. So, yeah.
Philip, do you mind touching on the kind of Massachusetts state standards and specific things that you're looking for at UMass?
Yeah. So I just have it pulled up here because I always forget what they are. So we have to follow MBHE, Mass Board of Higher Education, right? For in-state students, honestly, that's not really ever an issue just because like you need those classes to graduate. Like Millis wouldn't let you graduate unless you take the classes that we're looking for. So it's really just all those like out-of-state folks that cause more of an issue, but it's never really an issue, right? So it's 4 years of math. We need to see math your senior year. 4 years of English, 2 years, at least 2 years of a foreign language. Obviously, if you're like going to pursue a language or really even anything in like the humanities and fine arts, we'd like to see 3 years or possibly more. But 2 years, we gotta see that. 3 years of a science, they all must include a lab. Something's going on with AP Psych. That might be a lab course. Don't know about that. These are just my notes. And then 2 years of a social science and one must be US history. Again, everyone normally has that. That comes more into play with like international students who, unless they're at an American international school, they're not taking US history because why would they? They are from a different country, right? So that's like those are the MBHE things that we're looking for. Again, an in-state student, it's never, ever really a problem. The certain requirements that we have for some majors, we do have certain class requirements. So if you're interested in anything within the business school, so accounting, finance, marketing, management, operations, information management, sport management, or hospitality tourism management, you need to have pre-calculus at least, and we'd really like to see calculus, but pre-calc is a must. If you're interested in computer sciences, same thing, we need to see pre-calculus. And then if you're interested in any of the engineerings, there's now 8, maybe 9 engineerings on our campus. Pre-calculus, chemistry, and physics are required classes. So that's it. Those are the only majors on our campus that have a specific required class from high school. But those are the first things we look at. Like, I don't read for any of those specific majors. We also read major by major. I read primarily for psychology. So unless you're, a Millis student applying for psych, I probably won't be reading your application. But that's just how we do it. First thing that the people look at is the transcript. Do they have those specific classes? If they do, great. We can read your application holistically and try to get you in. If you don't have those classes, you are just not admissible into that program, and you're not going to be admitted. So things to think of. And again, someone said it earlier. Do your research. Every school is going to be different. We all have different policies because we're all vastly different types of schools. So that's every single school in the country is going to be a little different. So make sure you're researching it, see what classes are required for certain majors, because it's going to be different at, essentially every school, which I know is frustrating for, families and students and stuff, but it makes sense when you think of it that we're all completely different types of schools. So.
All right, thank you. Jeff, this next one's for you. There's sometimes a misunderstanding regarding GPA. Would you mind talking a little bit about kind of the variance in GPAs and how you interpret GPA? Do you guys take just the GPA that's right on a student's transcript, or does BC recalculate GPAs based on their standards? How does that work?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. That's a really confusing thing. For us, we don't recalculate. We just take the school, how it reports it to us. And, high schools are wildly different in the ways that they report information to us because communities are different, and everything's tailored to the specific characteristics of that community. You're at a school where you're graduating 60 something students a year. There are high schools in this state that graduate 700 students a year. So I think the way we look at it is you live where you live, you attend school, you can take advantage of the resources at your disposal and just try to do to the best of your advantage. Don't worry about what's occurring at other places. We just set the bar in terms of what's available to you at Millis High School and work back from there. It is so good that you have such an institutional knowledge of past graduates, because that score data is good, but I think it's important to have people that know how to interpret it. So if you're an outlier on it, Riley and Nicole might be able to say, all right, well, but we know who the outliers were at those schools like past years, and we can give you guidance on terms of like if you're in that right outlier, or did the student get in for maybe other reasons. So I think just lean on them is kind of my point, and then trust. I think especially for popular schools around here, and all of us on the call fall into that category here. You're not competing with your peers at Millis High School, because there's no sort of cap on how many students we admit in a given year. It's more about the competitiveness with students around the country and world. But you just take advantage of the resources you can to the best of your ability, and don't worry about what's having an X, Y, and Z institution or school in the area. Just kind of focus on, the resources you have at Millis High School and utilizing those to the fullest.
Awesome. Thank you. And you mentioned, thank you, Jeff. You mentioned, whether or not they're competing with their fellow Millis classmates at Millis High School. We do not rank.
Yeah.
Is that something that hurts our students, or how do you interpret that when a high school says they don't rank their students?
Yeah, I mean, especially a school of your size, like, what's the difference between number 6 and number 10?
Right.
Like, it's like a decimal point difference.
Mhm.
So, and I would say the vast majority of high schools in the United States do not rank anymore. So again, you kind of take that out of it. And like, as you go down like a rank list, obviously academics are first and foremost, but you might see a school like BC skip over a student that's academically ahead of another student because the student is the student below them academically is a better fit extracurricularly for what we offer. So that's why, kind of keeping your college counselors as partners is an important part of this.
Thank you. All right, Eric, I'm going to send this next question to you. What are your testing requirements for the class of 2027? Are you guys test optional? And how does that work for you? Has everybody decided that for this class yet, or is that still pending? I guess we'll start with NC State though.
Yeah, no, I love this question. Actually, I love talking about testing. I think it's such a neat topic, or not really. It's tricky for sure. Yeah, so we review every 2 years, kind of get direction from the Board of Governors, kind of at a higher level as far as what we're going to do. Right now for class of 2026, so current seniors and juniors, we are test optional. I don't know beyond that, what's going to happen. Obviously, we'll be reviewing again and making another decision on that. For us, and I can only speak for us because I do think that it is very different. Our approach to being test optional is we really truly are test optional. Last year, about half of our students didn't submit test scores. If the students choose not to, we don't look at their application and wonder why or think they have something to hide. We really just look at what we have. And so if there are no test scores, that's fine. And also we follow a do no harm practice. So if a student submits the test scores and they're competitive and they're going to help the student, we will use them to support their candidacy for admission. I like to say we're looking for reasons to admit students, not for reasons to keep them out. So that is how we approach testing. If the scores are not competitive, we ignore them. And I think this is where it gets kind of nuanced from one school to another, and so, ultimately I like to tell students, hey, it's really important to have conversations with the different folks at the schools, the admissions folks, your counselors, so you can make an informed decision on whether or not you want to submit your test scores. For us, I appreciate that we're fairly transparent. And it's like, if you're in doubt, just send them in. They're not going to hurt you. But I can't say that for everybody. So I'll just kind of leave it there.
Yeah, maybe I could just jump in with a quick counterpoint. Eric, I appreciate it. It was well said. For us, we're starting to see more students submit testing. So while we remain test optional, for instance, 75% of the students we admitted last year had a test score. The good news with that is, the bands are expanding. They're not quite as elevated. They're not as high as they were right out of the pandemic when a small group of students was submitting their scores, and it was students that just had incredibly high scores. So we're starting to see the ranges of scores you need to gain admission to Boston College sort of widen, which is good. But we are seeing students submit more testing to us. And I think that just speaks to, kind of something Eric was saying, a little bit different than NC State. If you send us your score, we're going to look at it, and it's going to factor in. It's going to contribute in a meaningful way to our review. So, you might want to sit with your counselors, and that's kind of another layer of the process past the pandemic. It might not be a one size fits all to your testing you might be submitting your testing to some of the schools you're applying to, and maybe you're applying as a test optional at other schools.
I'll jump in too. So UMass is test optional. I haven't heard anything about going back to test required. I'd be very surprised. I think if we were to ever switch back, truly optional. Like Eric was saying, like it really is optional. It's very different than BC. We don't get a ton of test scores. Last year, we received 22% of our applications had an SAT score attached with it. And it's really two majors or two colleges on campus are the ones that dominate it. Computer science, majority of students submit their test scores, and same thing with engineering. Basically every other college on campus, it's less than 15% of students are sending in their test scores. So don't know why comp sci and engineering, but that's how it is. I think you should submit your test score if you take it, and if you're proud of the score that you got, send it in to us, right? If you took it and you are wigged out when you get your test score back, don't show it to us, and then we'll never know. So, but if you do show it to us, we will look at it. Yeah.
Lisa, has Mass Bay decided whether or not they're going to require SATs for this graduating class?
Great question. So Mass Bay and pretty much all the other community colleges, we never require SAT scores. Just like we don't require recommendations, essays. All we require is proof of high school. So it's very simple than my colleagues here. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But if you do submit your SAT scores, we can probably use them to determine your placement level in English or math, but we're not using them at all for admissions because we're open enrollment.
What a setup, Riley. Feed that one up. For
The worker in there. All right. And let's see, another SAT question, Allie, if you don't mind answering this one. Do you have any suggestions for students about whether they, if they do want to take the SATs or the ACTs, should they choose one over the other, or how many times should they take the test if they are going to take it?
Yeah, totally. So what I'll say first, I know that you guys obviously in high school have PSAT day, so I think that's just kind of mandated, probably, most likely. That's how it was in
It's optional for PSATs. It's optional, but
okay.
So some of them have taken it, but not everybody.
Okay, I would say if you have the option, and I'm going to assume it's free too for the PSAT. No, okay.
No, that's why it's optional.
Yeah. Okay, got it. It's been like 8 years since I've been in high school, so I always like to check. If you feel like you want to pay to do the PSAT, I feel like it's a good benchmark for you to have. Of course, I wish the SAT and the ACT didn't cost money to take. Otherwise, I would say just take them because there's no harm, no foul. I know that the ACT is a little bit different than the SAT. I know that there's a science component that may be changing. They may be doing away with. I heard something about that. But typically, that's the only defining factor between the differences between the two tests. They're also scored differently. So, if you know that you're a stronger science student than you are, an English student, maybe you would want to try the ACT over the SAT. I would say if you're deciding to take either test, I would say at least take it once or twice. If you have the PSAT available to you, like I said, and you want to pay for it, use that as your benchmark, and then do any test prep that you can. I know like Khan Academy, Chegg, those are fantastic resources that are usually free to students. So if you are wanting to do test prep questions or just to kind of get your mind ready to answer the types of questions you will see on a standardized test like that, because it's much different than the tests and exams that you're seeing now in high school and then those that you will see in college. Don't know who invented that system. That's just the way it is. So I think doing the prep like that to kind of get you ready to be in that headspace during those standardized exams is really helpful and could hopefully bump up your score if you already took it once and want to retake it again.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And because we're small, we have like the PSAT we did have at Millis High School, but the actual SAT the students need to sign up for on the College Board. So we're going to post that information in the Google Classroom for them so they can go ahead and sign up at an area high school to take the SATs or the ACTs. Millis students do tend to take more SATs than ACTs, but my understanding is that the colleges have no preference between an SAT or an ACT score. All right. I think if it's okay with you guys, we're going to shift a little bit to that big, bad college essay. So Eric, I'll throw this question at you. Do you have any suggestions for how applicants should show interest or communicate? Oh, sorry, this one isn't quite about essays yet, but it's about how students show interest or how they communicate with you or your college. Is there a kind of best practice for them in terms of how they should reach out?
Yeah, I think for me, just trying to think. So is it related to essay or not related to essay?
No, sorry, not related to essay. Just
Sorry.
like if they're trying to reach out to to connect with you or to get more info. What's the best way to do that?
Gosh, I think probably good old-fashioned email is probably the best way to get in touch with me. We don't use demonstrated interest, so it's not going to be advantageous for them just to say hi or anything like that, and tell me that they really want to come to NC State. But I'm always happy to respond to emails. That's probably the best mechanism to connect directly with me. I know that we have some different platforms that we use. One of them is called Zeme, where they can connect with other students, other folks at the institution. We do some different social media things. So if it's me directly, then yeah, email is probably the best way to go. But if it's somebody else, we have other folks in our office, other students and stuff like that. So there's going to be other opportunities for them to make some of those connections that extend beyond that. But yeah, those good old emails are good.
Awesome. And curious from you guys, with student emails and applications, do you find that students are emailing professionally and using proper grammar and all that good stuff? Usually people are pretty good about that. Good. Obviously, the Millis kids definitely are. Also on their applications as well, we definitely want to encourage our kids, as soon as they're putting their name in, they need to be capitalizing things. I think just with all the tech stuff they do, sometimes they get a little used to not capitalizing their street name, all that good stuff. So we just encourage them to definitely, when they're reaching out, making sure they're being polite and professional in their emails. All right, so let's see. Now actually switching to the essay. I will direct this one towards you, Philip. Do you have any tips for writing the essay?
Write about something that we don't know about you from the rest of your application. People always ask, like, well, what's the topic? Like, what do I write my essay about? I can't speak upon everyone else, but I'm sure everyone else kind of agrees with me that where it's like, we don't really care what you write your essay about. We just want to learn more about you as a person. We want to learn about your character. We want to learn about things that happened in your life, right? Because we can figure out the type of student that you are pretty easily by looking at your transcript, your GPA, counselors, the letter of recommendations, teacher letter of recs. It's like the person. What type of person? What type of young person we getting onto our campus? We want to make sure it's like a good person on our campus, right? So I did this for a panel that I actually had last week, and people thought it was very helpful. I've been writing down topics of essays that I've written this year, or that I've read this year. The list goes on and on, so I'm not going to do it for everyone, but just some examples that it doesn't have to be some like I cured cancer at age 12 essay, because that's ridiculous. No one expects that. So some students wrote about Sunday dinner with grandma every single week, yearly family vacations to the Cape, what different colors mean to me, working at a preschool, my car is my escape and my safe place, people watching, making up stories about who they are, what they're doing, learning to love my curly hair, my love of Billie Eilish, my love of cereal, lifelong friendship ending in high school. I was always the shy, quiet kid, being loud and talkative and always getting into trouble in school, developing love of music from my mom, crocheting with grandma, right? So they're all over the place. It's not one specific story that we want to read. We just want to learn more about you as a person. Like Riley said about the rest of the application, please make sure that it's like proper grammar, like capitalize things. It's not a, you know, doctoral thesis that you're submitting to us, that you're writing. It's a 650 word essay, right? It's nothing too out of this world, but it is a college essay. It should have capital letters. It should have periods. It should flow grammatically, right? We shouldn't have to like reread a sentence 4 different times to like understand what it means. So, you know, have an English teacher, have a friend, have a parent, you know, reread it, just proofread it. Definitely, obviously, like take the time to make it sure it's like a well-written essay. But again, it doesn't have to be this like huge official, you know, research paper. Because honestly, we're not looking for that. We do get essays about like the dissection of a frog and like what the different cells mean and all this crazy stuff. And like, none of us are smart enough to understand that. If I'm going to be honest, like I'm Googling half the stuff when I read an essay like that. We'd much rather, I can't speak upon anyone, but I think we'd much rather just read about like a cool story about something that happened in your life, something that's going to give us more information about you as a person.
Awesome. Thank you. Switching a little bit again to deadlines. So just like a quick overview of the sort of different types of deadlines. Early action and early decision deadlines will come up. They'll be typically in November, sometimes in October for some of those southern schools. And early action, students can apply to as many schools as they want early action. They typically hear back in December or January, and then they have until May 1st to decide where they actually want to go. And then early decision is different in that if students apply early decision, they're making a big decision, right? They're committing to a college. They're saying, you're my number one choice. If you accept me, I will definitely go there. I will unenroll all my applications from other schools and I will enroll at your college. So that's a big commitment. The student has to sign a contract. The counselor has to sign it and the parent has to sign it, that we all understand the commitment that the student's making for early decision. Millis students, honestly, for the most part, they don't apply early decision as often because I think most students like to be able to hear back from a bunch of different schools, get their different financial aid packages, maybe make more visits and continue to figure out, you know, what they like and don't like about schools before they actually make that final decision. But that's kind of the difference between early action and early decision. And then regular decision, those deadlines aren't going to be until January typically. Sometimes December, sometimes February, but students can apply to as many schools as they want. Regular decision, they hear back typically in March, sometimes April, and then again, they have until May 1st to decide which of those schools that they actually want to go to and deposit at. So with all of that in mind, let's see. Eric, would you mind talking about maybe who should or should not consider applying early action, early decision, or regular? I think NC State just has early action or regular, correct? Okay. So you don't mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah. We don't have that early decision option, early decision model. So, you know, really, if you're looking early decision, that's going to be something that you have to be, you know, 1,000% sure that's where you want to go. And I think that would even extend to, you know, making sure the financials make sense for you as well. Early action is really where we are going to encourage students to apply. And I think that the advantages upside to early action, you know, aside from the obvious, you get your decision faster or sooner. But then also, I think it gets you in a little bit more of a timely space for scholarship consideration applications. And this is just for us, for housing, getting that housing application in, new student orientation. So, you know, we always talk and focus on admissions, and that's always kind of the center point of attention and that sort of thing. But then, you know, once you're admitted, you know, we really kind of turn our attention to some other things. And that's going to be those scholarship applications. And again, that's going to be specific for NC State. We invite you to fill out your housing application. So we're really focused on some other things. Regular decision is a nice option. Like there's nothing wrong with applying regular decision. We get the bulk of our applications through early action, but that doesn't mean that we fill our class in early action or anything anything like that. And so that regular decision is left out. So we have this expectation that we're going to admit some really good students from regular decision. And in fact, we even have a situation where students can apply early action and can be, I think this is a question that comes up later, deferred into regular decision, in which case they'll be admitted, they can be admitted in regular decision. So for us, it's I think the big thing is timing. I just think, getting out in front of your deadlines and stuff like that, by applying early action, getting those decisions a little sooner is always, it's always a good thing. But, regular decision is perfectly fine as well. There's nothing wrong with that.
Awesome. And since you guys do, because I know not everybody does defer to regular if you don't get in an early action, would you mind talking about if students are deferred, so if they apply during early action and they're deferred, is there anything that they should do at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we try to give them specific kind of action items at that point. So really it's going to be, we have a form that you can complete that just indicates that you are still interested. So, let us know that you are still interested in doing that. It's like a 3-question form, so it's pretty short and quick. And then we just ask for an updated copy of your grades. And so, we want to see how senior year is going for you. Kind of circling back to a conversation that was had earlier, for us, pre-calculus, I think Philip brought it up, pre-calculus is really pretty important. And so we may want to see a pre-calc grade from fall. So it might be something as simple as just looking at those fall grades before we can make that that offer of admission. I always like to say being deferred, it doesn't mean it's a no. It just means not yet. We still want to continue to look at your application. We still think you're a good student. We just want to kind of see how our numbers are coming together, that sort of thing, because we are direct admit to school. We just want to see how everything is kind of shaken out before, we make that offer. Things that I'm always hesitant to say we don't want. Maybe that's a bit strong, but we're not going to be looking for like additional reference letters. We're not looking for resumes or other pieces of information. If there's a life-changing event that happened to you since the time you applied, by all means, you can share that with us. But if you are now named the alternate captain to the JV hockey team, probably not something that's going to move the needle a lot on your application. Good for you. But for us, it's not something that you probably need to share with us. So we'll kind of let you know what we're looking for. And if you're ever unsure, I always tell students you can reach out to me and I can kind of give you some guidance on yay or nay on that.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeff, do you mind talking a little bit about early decision, since you guys have that at BC?
Yep, sure. So, it's another, again, layer of this process. It didn't exist maybe a generation ago when I applied and the parents on the call applied. You might want to think about when you're applying to schools. So it used to be just, you found the right mix of schools, the right number, and that was it. Like that was the college list. Now you might want to be strategic about when you're applying to schools. And that's particularly true, I think, if you have an early decision option. So for us, early decision 1 is November 1st, and you find out in early December. And as mentioned before, if you get in, you're done. You're going to BC. We also have an early decision 2 option, which is the same deadline as regular decision. And that's a good option for students that aren't ready to make that binding commitment in the fall. So they apply places early action, non-binding, see how all that shakes out. And then because the regular decision deadline and the early decision 2 deadline are the same date, maybe a school does emerge from that group of regular decision schools that now in January you're willing to make a binding commitment to. And that's when the early decision 2 option might be appropriate for you. And there are a number of great schools that do early decision, like BC, that offer that second option. An advantage to applying early decision, other than just knowing where you're going early in your senior year, is that the acceptance rates tend to be higher. Our acceptance rate for early decision 1 and 2, there's really no difference in selectivity between the 2 deadlines, is around 30%. Regular decision, it's about 15%. And then about 60% of our students are enrolled from early decision 1 and 2, 40% from regular decision. We had early action for a long time. It's great. Those are great programs to give students, that extra time to make this important decision. What happened to us it was right around the pandemic, 2019, 2020. Some of the schools that we most cross applications with had already moved to early decision. So for us, it got frustrating because we had to make, as you can relate, as you can imagine, like really tough decisions on a lot of deserving students. And then so we would send out our early action acceptances only to increasingly each year get a flurry of emails back from students that we had just admitted a couple days later or a week or two later saying, thanks BC, but I actually applied to you early action and somewhere else early decision and I got in. And so just for where we are, in the landscape, it made sense for us at that time to go early decision. So this is what, like our 7th or 8th year with early decision. And that was our rationale moving to it.
Just to add a big distinction between early action and regular decision for UMass. So those are the only two that we offer. We don't do early decision. So you choose one or the other. It's either in November or in January that you apply. If you apply for early action, we're not going to see your senior fall grades. Well, it's very rare that we'll see your senior fall grades. If you want us, guaranteed that we'll see your senior fall grades and courses, you've got to wait till regular decision to have those grades included. Just because by the time that all of us are reviewing applications early mid-November, senior fall is not done yet. So right, you might get lucky where your quarter 1 grades get sent in to us before we read your application, but you also might not get lucky enough for that. So I'd say if you really want a college to see your senior fall grades, like the entire semester, best bet, kind of only bet, is to hold off until regular decision. That way we can see those grades and we can include them into them.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so switching gears to kind of financial aid and affordability. Maybe Allie, you can answer this one. So many families are concerned about financing a college education. Do you have any suggestions as to how families can incorporate value into their search for a college?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so speaking from personal experience, I am first gen, and I feel like I knew very little about the college application process and even less about the financial aid process. So I'll try and answer the question as best as I can, but I might veer off a little bit and still give you important tidbits, but just rein me back in if I'm not making sense. At least in terms of value, I think now that we have so many in Massachusetts, so many wonderful options like Mass Bay and all the other community colleges, I think it's important and it would be silly not to consider all of your options, whether that's starting off at a community college, doing, your associates there and then transferring to a 4-year. If maybe you just want to take some classes while you're still in high school to try and get some transfer credits to, speed up your time at a 4-year institution. I think there's so much value in looking at all of your options, whether it's community college, state schools like UMass, private schools like, myself and BC, looking outside of New England to consider different things like out-of-state tuition, different things like that. One thing you'll probably hear a lot as you go through this process too is something called the sticker price, which is usually something that students never end up paying once all is said and done. I feel like oftentimes it will typically scare students and families when they see that sticker price on, promotional material that we give you at visits in high schools. But keep in mind that there's a lot of pieces of the financial aid process. So it's good to speak, stay in constant contact with, your school counselors, Riley, Nicole. If you have opportunities like they mentioned at the beginning to attend financial aid seminars, that's the best way to get the most amount of information about this process. Because I almost feel like they try to make it as complicated as possible. And there's so many different phrases and new terms that you're maybe just hearing for the first time, that for someone that, might be first gen like myself, I had no idea what subsidized or unsubsidized loans were. I was just like, I know what I can afford. And if I go here, I have to take out this much. So just kind of giving yourself all of the tools possible. Also, be aware too that while you'll have an admissions counselor, which could be any of us on the call, you'll also have a financial aid counselor too. So once you put in your applications and you start to get those decisions back, and hopefully it's good news, you'll likely have an idea on, if schools offer merit-based scholarships, how much you've been awarded, and then once you file the FAFSA, what your entire financial aid package looks like. So once you receive that, it's really important too to have those conversations with your financial aid counselor to make sense of what you're seeing. Maybe you didn't know that you were eligible for a Pell Grant, or you're trying to make sense of, okay, you have this much in merit, this much in need-based aid, and this is your cost of attendance after everything's said and done. Now, how do we go about affording that? What is the best case scenario here? Should I take out a private loan? Who should I do it with? Et cetera, et cetera. Is that helpful? Did I speak more to value or just general, like what I would do in your shoes?
I think that was great. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Allie, I think that was fantastic. I just want to add one thing. I think as families of juniors, you're not going to be doing your FAFSA until several months from now. And you're looking at the sticker price, it can be overwhelming. Well, I don't know if you know this, but all of the schools are required to have something on their website called a net price calculator. We all have it. Every school has it. So if you're curious, it's kind of late, but maybe tomorrow or over the weekend, you could go to all of our schools and go to the net price calculator and fill out some basic information. And some of the information might be easy. Some of, it's going to ask you about like income and things of that sort, but it's a general sense of, based on your students' GPA, SAT scores, a few other things, plus some of your income information and asset information, it will give you a sense of what, you'd be seeing for financial aid. A school like Mass Bay, we only give need-based financial aid, and then there's the free community college. But some of these other schools on here have merit scholarships. So based on a certain GPA or SAT score, you might get a $20,000 scholarship, a $30,000 scholarship. And so that, seeing those numbers now versus waiting until your student is a senior, this time next year, is kind of like, oh, at least you had a sense of what it could look like, or what they need to work on. Like, oh, if your GPA was a little higher, Suffolk would give you 25,000 instead of, et cetera. So I think it's worth doing an exercise with you and your student, also just so that they're aware of what the costs are, that sticker price, and then what it could go down to, like Allie said.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Lisa just said, especially at the end, make sure, this is to the parents out there, make sure your students are involved with the financial talk aspect of college. I still talk about this all the time. I was dead set on my dream school. It was going to cost us far too much than I could actually afford. But as a 17-year-old kid, I was like, whatever, I'll take out loans. I'll do it. I just want to go to that school. My dad came home one day from work. Had this big, huge spreadsheet, planned out loans for 35 years, absolutely crushed my life. I thought my life was over because I realized I couldn't go to that dream school. I ended up at UMass, transferring to UMass halfway through freshman year. Everything worked out well, right? But still to this day, I tell him all the time, like, I'm so thankful that you came home and just like ruined my day, ruined my week, my life at that time. Because had I, not listened to him and gone and, you make it work, obviously, but that's 35 years that I would have been, not doing what I wanted to be doing, right? So, and obviously, like, what 17-year-old kid can process a 35-year loan and all that stuff? I'm 25. I can like barely still process all that stuff. So, definitely just keep the family in the loop, keep your students involved with the finances aspect of college, and show them the real numbers. It might be scary, but if you're anything like me and my dad, like, you'll thank them, a couple of years down the road. So.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. A few kind of special consideration questions. Let's see, Allie, do you want to speak to, is the application process different for students on an IEP or with a special ed plan? Any suggestions around, special education students and their applications?
Yeah, none that I can think of, at least for Suffolk. That might be a generalization for most colleges, and I'll let anyone chime in otherwise afterwards. But, if it's something that you want to make us aware of, there's no, at least for us, for Suffolk specifically, there's no paperwork or additional forms you have to fill out. indicating that you have an IEP or 504, whatever it might be, any additional, academic supports that you have in high school. If you feel that it's important that you include that context in your application, maybe you were not on a plan at one point in high school, and then you did find yourself on one, and you maybe saw an increase in your grades. You can provide that as context to us, just so we know. We'll definitely keep track of it mentally, just so we can kind of, again, have that context, because sometimes there's a lot of gray area on something as black and white as a transcript, but no special steps that need to be taken. That's more so, honestly, for down the road, post an enrollment deposit and you deciding to come to Suffolk University. If you like those accommodations to carry over, it's really just a matter of emailing our accommodations office and making them aware and setting up a relationship. So should you want those same accommodations in college and in your first year classes, you have them, so you feel supported.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Eric, I'm going to direct this question for you about student athletes. How is the process different for a recruited student athlete or other special interest candidate? I actually had one of our juniors today asked, so if I'm working with a coach and I get recruited through a coach, do I not have to worry so much about my grades and all of that stuff? How does that work, Eric?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, I think, the big thing is that, athletics kind of does their own thing. Like they don't reach out to me and say, hey, Eric, find us a running back or something like that. It's, they're going to have their process. And so when students approach me as an athlete and say, hey, I'm interested in playing, this football at NC State or whatever, I'm going to direct them to our website, the athletics page. There's a questionnaire form that they can fill out. It goes to the coaches. The coaches will reach out and recruit you as a student athlete. They will advise admissions of their interest in a student. For us, our director will read those applications. There's still an expectation that you hit certain academic standards and benchmarks, though. So it's not, a case where athletics is recruiting you or at College of Design, we can go any number of different directions with that. And if you aren't in a competitive space academically, our director is going to say, the student is not competitive to attend NC State. And it gets back to, what was said earlier, that I think Philip made the point. We want you to be successful when you get there. So you do have to be in that space academically. There is a different process for review, but that is done more at the director level, but it is sort of in collaboration with athletics. So it's not something that, I'm going to be able to advise real well on, but I do know that the students will still have to apply. They'll still have to do the necessary steps academically.
Awesome. All right, I think we'll open it up to questions in a minute, but before we do, Lisa, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about some of the programs at Mass Bay, the Mass Transfer Program, and some of those benefits.
Thank you, Riley. I appreciate it. So what makes the community colleges different than my colleagues here at the four-year schools, we don't offer four-year bachelor degrees. We have certificate programs as well as associate degree programs. Certificate programs can be as short as 1 or 2 semesters. An associate's degree, I like to explain it, it's like half of a bachelor's degree. So you can come to a community college for 2 years and then take all the credits that you earned and worked on at the community college and then transfer them to a four-year school. I know for a fact here, all of my colleagues on the screen would love to see transfer credits from Mass Bay, and they do every year. We have lots of students who transfer to UMass Amherst. We have students who've gone on to BC, definitely Suffolk. I don't know, Eric, it'd be great to know if any Mass Bay students headed your way, but I can tell you that many, many students come to Mass Bay with that intention. However, we also have students who aren't sure that they want to go on to a four-year school. They just know they want to work on some sort of career certificate, or just, sometimes you want to just take a break and try a couple classes. If students are interested in the new free community college program, they do have to be a Massachusetts resident. They have to be taking at least 6 credits, which is 2 classes. And they have to be in one of our eligible programs. And all of our programs are eligible with the exception of a few short-term certificates. It's a great place for students who know that they want to go and save a lot of money and then transfer, but we also make a wonderful safety school, right? So I can tell you as a parent of a senior this year, it's fascinating going through this process. But, you know, I say this every year on this panel, please have your students apply. It's free. There's no application fee. We're not on the Common App, but you have to go to our website. And it's nice to get that automatic acceptance, right? And so you have that in your back pocket. So when you do get a deferred letter or maybe a denial letter, you always have that Mass Bay option. What tends to happen for students who aren't really necessarily thinking about the community college as a first choice, you know, they're working on their financial plans, and they're all set to go to a certain school, but then maybe they didn't get the scholarship they thought they were going to get, or maybe something happened at home, mom or dad lost their job. We're happy to be your, you know, last resort, I like to say, because those are the stories where, you know, you have a place to go, you can come here for a semester or 4 semesters and then transfer. All the folks here on the call tend to come to our campus on a regular basis to recruit our students. And they'll say, we can take you in a semester, we can take you when you finish your associate's degree. So transferring is a great option. The other resource is maybe some of your students aren't thinking 2-year school at all, and that's fine. But we're also a wonderful place for when they come home in the summer, right, where they can take a class or 2. Maybe they didn't do so great in that biology class, right? Or maybe they want to get ahead in a certain other area. So you just check in with your home institution and say, will you take these Mass Bay credits when I come back in the fall? So there's a lot of different ways to think about community college, but I can't not stress that we're in an amazing opportunity moment here with free community college. So you can really honestly save tens of thousands of dollars by coming to us first and then transferring. So if finances in the end does tend to be a concern, or maybe if you have a student who's not sure what they want to do, we're a wonderful place. Our average class size is anywhere between 16 to 20 students. And, you know, again, it's free to apply. We don't require, you know, the SATs. So if your student's sitting here thinking, oh gosh, you know, I don't know if I have the certain GPA to get into any of these institutions, we don't have a GPA requirement. You just have to graduate from high school. So it's a wonderful place. Like I said, we have a great relationship with Riley and Nicole. So if you think you want to just visit, we tend to come to the college fairs as well, but we also have big open houses where you can come and just walk around and get a sense. I think if you have a certain image of what community college is, please come visit us, because you'll be really impressed with our spaces, our bio labs. I think Nicole and Riley's been to all of our campuses. So it's pretty amazing, and it's such an amazing price point as well. So thank you for considering. I appreciate it.
So yeah, honestly, when I toured the new medical facility in Framingham, made me think about a career change. I was like, oh my goodness, it's free, and like it's really impressive, the facilities you have. Awesome. So I think at this point we'll open it up to questions. I think there's a chat. Oh, there it is. The Q&A is open for anyone who wants to submit questions for the panel to answer. So we'll give you a minute to type those in.
And if you can't see it on your screen, there is a little activities icon. It's usually at the bottom right corner. You would just select the Q&A there, and you should be able to ask a question.
And just a note for everybody who's listening, well, I'm going to email out materials to all the junior parents that'll help you guys to kind of read through some of the things that we went over tonight. And the kids have a Google Classroom where they can access all of this stuff at any time. Again, they walk past our offices every day, so we love them and we love doing this stuff. So we want them to pop in and ask questions whenever they have them. We don't want them to stress and worry and sit with those things. We want them to just come in, and we'll help them take the next step and work these things out. So please encourage them to come see us. And we're also happy to sit down with parents, because again, this process, you heard from just 5 different schools tonight who, handle everything slightly differently. It's different for every kid. It's different for every school. So it's a very individualized process. And we want to work with the kids to help them figure out what is going to be the best fit for them moving forward and the next best steps to take. I don't know. Can I see the chat? Is there a chat? Is anybody asking questions? No?
Not seeing any questions.
Okay.
There.
All right. Well, then I think we can wrap this up then. Thank you all so much for attending. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you to all the parents who tuned in at home. Maybe we have some students watching as well. We really appreciate you guys watching. And this is recorded, so if you have friends that missed it, we will post it on the website. But yeah, thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good
Go
night.
Pats.
Yeah, go Pats, exactly.